Hey everybody, so great to have all of you joining us today. I am super thrilled to be with my good friend Birch. He is the founder of Unseminary, which is a blog and a website and a podcast that you definitely need to be listening to, and a YouTube channel, just a whole suite of products to help you do things that they didn't teach you in seminary, stuff that you wish they taught you in seminary. Definitely check that out. But Rich is also the author of Church Growth Flywheel and the creator of Church Growth Flywheel Masterclass. And Rich, I just want to have you on today to kind of talk about, in your years of working with churches and consulting and studying best practices and helping churches be more streamlined, what would you say the role of preaching plays in church growth in particular?
Well, first of all, I love what you're doing here. I just think it's amazing and just so thankful to be here. Preaching is, we see time and again in studies, it is the reason why people come and return to churches. So there was a study done a couple years ago by the Gallup organization that found that 2/3, when surveyed, 2/3 of the reason why people come to churches is because of the teaching. Now, I know you know that as a preacher and you feel the weight of that. You're like, oh my goodness, there's a ton that we have to do every week. But I want to, as someone who doesn't preach every week, I've been in kind of the executive pastor seat for all these years. I want to encourage you that what you're doing week in, week out, accessing resources like this to try to get better at what you do is going to pay dividends in your church from a church growth point of view. Because actually, at the end of the day, the thing that people tell their friends about their church most often is actually teaching. And so it's a super important piece of the church growth, whole process for sure.
So for a pastor, if the goal is to get people to leave and tell friends, hey, listen, you got to go to this church, what are some things that pastors can do to invite that kind of feedback and invite people to, say that and to share about their church?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, the difference between kind of typical churches and churches that are growing, really, it's not a massive thing. It's not that hard to understand. The really difference between your average church and growing churches is that growing churches have developed a culture of invitability. They've figured out a way to encourage their people to invite friends on a regular basis. They're increasing the invite culture. And so I would say to a teacher or a pastor who's listening in today, how are you positioning what you're talking about in such a way that you're talking about it in a way that encourages people to kind of package that up and to talk to a friend about it? What are you doing to say? So I think a thing we do all the time, I've seen so many people, I think we all have this temptation, is we'll have a message on whatever we're preaching on this weekend, and instead of leaving some hooks in the water, instead of leaving some meat on the table, we just try to cover it all. But actually, what we see time and again in growing churches is actually a portion of every message is actually forward-oriented and saying, hey, this is where we're going next. It's that part at the end of the television show where they say, next time on whatever television show you watch. We need to have that kind of thing embedded into our teaching. And so don't ever complete the message. Don't ever give it the full thing. Leave some hooks there that would then encourage people to say, hey, ooh, that sounds like something I'd love to talk about. There's a whole other thing we could talk about, series promotion, this idea around how do we package up our content in such a way that people will not only know what's on now, but what's coming next. They want to not understand just what we're talking about now, but where we're headed, and then really using that as a way to encourage people to get out and talk to their friends, to invite their friends to come back time and again.
I love it. Yeah, we talk a lot at Preaching Donkey about building tension, how important that is. So leaving that kind of people wanting more, we're not going to give everything in one sermon. It's impossible to do anyway. Leave that tension. That's a really important part of it. Yeah,
I love when I see communicators do this. If you're looking for a practical way to do that, is there's probably that kind of where your message is going. You know that this series is kind of heading into whatever it is you're talking about next week, and you know that there's some really juicy questions around that.
Yeah.
And it could be like, hey, have you ever wondered about this thing about this passage that we've been talking about? Have you ever thought maybe how does this apply to our life, or what difference would this piece of what we're talking about make in our lives or in our world or in our family? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that next week. Like literally just kind of setting up the hook of like, here's 3 or 4 questions that really draw people in, but then don't deliver on it and say, hey, join us next week. I know that sounds kind of corny, but actually that'll pull people in and really get them thinking, how do I come back next week? And then maybe there's a friend. The other really simple thing that I would encourage pastors to do, and this you're going to say like, that's it. That's so simple, but you'd be amazed how many churches don't do that. You should be asking your people to invite friends. Too many times, pastors don't say, All we say is, this is what's coming up next. We don't say, this is what's coming up next and please invite your friends, or we're doing this for your friends. This is the reason why we're doing these things, because we want to see your friends get plugged in. And so a simple thing of just consistently, and I would say every week, but on a regular basis, getting out in front of your people, say invite, 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 invite. You cannot over message that too much. You've got to say to people consistently, don't just come next week, but bring a friend, bring somebody back next week.
Here in just a second, I'm going to help people connect with you and figure out how they can go further with Unseminary. But real quick, I just want to mention to you that I have a free gift just for you. If you want more information about how to create messages like this that create that kind of tension that draws people in, go to preachingdonkey.com/21 days, and you can pick up my free 21-day guide to creating killer sermons. It'll walk you through a 3-step process of creating and developing messages that will do this, where you can have a simple tool to reach out, grab people, and hopefully help them engage with someone to bring them back next week. preachingdonkey.com/21 days.
Just one thing before you go on. Listen, there are people that are listening and you've never gone to that website, entered your email address and got that. You're missing out. It's a free resource. And just imagine in 3 weeks, if this thing that you do on a regular basis could be better, that's what this resource is about. I wholeheartedly endorse it. It's incredibly helpful. Don't miss out. We know that there's hundreds, thousands of people that watch this that don't actually pick that up. You're missing out for not doing that.
Wow, thank you, Rich. So how can people connect with you and go further with what you have to offer?
Sure, yeah. If you just go to unseminary.com, we've got everything there. You can check out our website, and there's all kinds of free resources there. That would be the best place to check it out.
Awesome. So definitely go to unseminary.com. Rich, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next video.